Imagine for a moment if the earth had never known people. Mountains would still stand, the rivers would still flow, and the stars, they would still keep shining. Now, imagine our galaxy. Billions of stars stretching across unimaginable distances. Without us, it'll still be there, silent and endless. But here's the thing. The Earth with people, our galaxy with people, suddenly life starts to have meaning. And the universe, it can now start to wonder about itself. But at the same time, one may also wonder, why stars, why planets, why galaxies? Well, I for one can assure you that I'm not here to give you an astronomy lecture, but I'm here to show you something beyond that. An idea that we've heard before, an idea that we still keep hearing about, but most importantly, it's a truth that has endured. Because from as far back as I could remember, I've always been known to stand out. Even from a very young age, I found myself in situations and groups where fitting in for me was never really a major issue. However, despite my ability to blend in, I found myself often having to question my reason of being there. And one moment that stood out for me recently was when I was going to my physics lecture. I remember that day so vividly, mainly because I was 5 minutes early. And trust me, for a person who's always late, that 5 minutes felt like a major achievement for me. And I remember how, as I got in there, I realized how everyone was engaged in their normal, usual rhythm. Others were just reviewing yesterday's class notes, others just scrolling over their phones, and others just casually talking about whatever they had going on at that certain point in time in their lives. But as I stood there, I felt this very big wave of stillness, this strange feeling that kept on washing over me. And in this very same stillness, I was struck. I was struck by a very dizzying realization. I realized how similar me and all my classmates seemed, yet how deeply different I kept on feeling as time went on. And that's when it dawned on me. I was going through an identity crisis. An identity crisis, ladies and gentlemen, to which I would then refer to as uniqueness. And that experience over there, together with so many other experiences that I've had in my life in the past, ever since I was a young boy, they have led to the beginning of my story, with just one simple question. What does it mean to be unique in a universe so vast? Our uniqueness empowers us to express ourselves in so many countless ways. Take a kaleidoscope, for example. Endlessly shifting patterns with each turn bring about a new idea to what meets the eye. And regardless of whether you're familiar with what a kaleidoscope looks like or you're not, I for one still see it as the most fitting and accurate analogy of human life. And by that I mean on how I see us as complex individuals, on how we're always ever changing and ever evolving, but most importantly, on how each and every perspective brings about a different version of ourselves. I, for one, have always been able to express myself in so many various ways, particularly through my understanding of science. Physics to me isn't just about equations. No, it's more than that. It has given me a framework to understanding not just the cosmos, but to also understanding creativity, authenticity, and even hardships for that matter. Physics has given me the framework to seeing how I can live my life. And by that, I'm not saying that physics demonstrates how one should be unique or how one should live out their uniqueness in a specific way, but rather, it has given me a lens to which I could visualize how I live out my uniqueness and my authenticity in the most creative of ways. For instance, studying the quantum world trained me to be comfortable with uncertainty. In physics, you learn that not knowing isn't actually a failure at all, but rather it is a fundamental state of reality. And just internalizing that idea on its own completely changed how I approach creativity in my life. Furthermore than that, it started giving me courage. Courage to begin projects with no endpoint, trusting that in the unknown, that is where originality is truly born. Similarly, learning about the concept of resonance gave me a very new and unique language for uniqueness. Seeing how systems in nature, ranging from your musical instruments to the small, tiny atoms that we find ourselves interacting with each and every day, flourish at their own inherent frequency, gave me a very profound framework for my own life. It started serving as a constant reminder to me that we are most impactful and most powerful when we align ourselves with our true passions and gifts. But that perspective of mine, ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't just end there. This perspective of mine extends from the tiny, minuscule quantum world to the big and vast infinite cosmos that we find ourselves being a part of. In my journey, during my studies, I came across something very extraordinary. It's called the nebula. For those that know the nebula from the James Webb Telescope, then they have an idea of what I'm talking about. But for those that have no idea of what the nebula is, well, I can tell you that it's one and it's among some of the most beautiful sights in astronomy. That nebula, or that object in that astronomical field, looking like cosmic watercolors painted across the darkness of space. Vast, molecular, luminous clouds of gas and dust where stars are born. But the beauty about these nebula isn't in how they are, but it's in how they are made. Because the nebula isn't born out of peace, but it's born out of death, the death of a star. And yet in that very same death, there's also birth. Because from the remains of a dying star, that is where we find the emergence of brand new and bright stars. And that is where my most profound lesson came from. And that's what I see when I look in myself. My journey as a student has been one of great growth and evolution, but none of it came easy. I faced hardships, moments of self-doubt, and challenges that felt even bigger than me. Yet in those very same moments, I discovered something. I realized that it's often the struggles that have helped reshape me to becoming the best and most perfected version of myself. And that's what the nebula teaches me, that born out of the death of stars, it can become a birthplace for new ones, for bigger and better and brighter stars. And going through that, it's how there's also this saying that a lot of people love to say, in which I resonate with that a lot. And it's that pressure creates diamonds. And guess what? I have found my own version of that truth by living and embracing my authenticity in the most creative of ways I can ever embrace it to. And how do I do that, you may ask? Simple. Creativity. Creativity isn't just an abstract idea to me. Creativity is how I live out my uniqueness. It fuels how I live and how I learn, how I solve problems in physics, or how I tell stories as a writer and an MC. But even bigger than that, creativity fuels how I connect to people as an individual. And with that, I've seen how creativity plays a very important role in my life, because it also serves as that just one tool that allows me to hold science on one hand and art on the other, and not see a contradiction, but a conversation. Or even better than that, a whole world full of infinite possibilities and imagination. And something that is noteworthy and very impressive is how throughout history, there's been so many great figures and icons who have stood out not just by trying to blend in, no, but they stood out by leaning onto what made them different. And some of these great examples include the great Albert Einstein, for example, who reshaped our understanding and view of our galaxy when he dared to imagine space and time differently. Or take the legendary Marie Curie, of course, who became not just the first, not just one, but the first female scientist or the first woman to win not just one, but 2 Nobel Prizes in different science fields. Or who could forget the legendary Stephen Hawking, for example, who showed us something very profound and unique, that even though the body is limited, the mind, it can expand universes upon universes. And centuries before that, we had the great Leonardo da Vinci, who blurred the boundaries between science and art by just acting out his curiosity. Simple. Which goes to show that curiosity can be some form of uniqueness, if you can take it that way. And for me, these stories just show me how much our uniqueness is more than just a personal style, but it can be the spark behind greatness, only if we embrace that. But furthermore, I've noticed something. This greatness and the spark of greatness that I see is something that I also see when I look up to the stars in the sky. Even though science may describe the mechanics for me and physics may show me the equations that I use in my daily life, but the stars, they show me patterns of meaning. A true reminder that for thousands of years, we human beings have often looked up to the stars to try and understand ourselves for the better and to try and find our purpose in this life that we're going on. That is what I see when I look up to the stars in the sky. But this isn't just a personal story to me, it's a collective one. For me, uniqueness is the single thread that runs through every single thing that I do. And if there's something that I've learned in this world is that the world, it doesn't need another version of somebody else, but it needs the only version of you. And reflecting on the wise words of the great Neil deGrasse Tyson, who once said, "We are part of this universe. We are in this universe." But most important than those 2 facts combined is the fact that the universe is within us. So what does this mean according to me? This means that our uniqueness is not a crisis, but it's a gift. Our struggles are not just obstacles that held us behind, but they're the pressure, the collapse, the chaos that gives rise to brilliance so that a more perfected version of ourselves can start coming out and can start being born. That's what I see as uniqueness. So if a dying star can give birth to many other stars at the same time, then maybe your obstacles and your challenges, they're not the end of your story. Maybe, and just maybe, they can be the beginning of your next universe. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much.